Coming to you from the greatest city in the world, this is the #1 showbiz podcast. It's Talk for Two. Here's your host, Matt Bailey.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Gary. Thank you. And welcome, everybody. Welcome, because here we are. This is the start to week of 100. Every single interview for the whole week is completed, and I can tell you, this is something really, really special. The day has arrived. Buckle up, because we're going full throttle throughout the next 5 days. This is really cool. I am beyond thrilled. Let's get started with our usual thank you to the Tangent Bound Network, and I want to thank Axtell Expressions, but today we get to do that a little more personally because the insanely talented man himself, Steve Axtell, is here, along with the insanely talented Mirage headliner, Terry Fator, to kick off this incredible week of episodes. Terry, Steve, and I have an incredible discussion on creativity and originality. Now, the Axtell Fator collaborations are legendary, and we really dive into their history and their dynamic. Plus, Terry Fator is no longer the sole ventriloquist to win a GT, and we talk about that at length as well. Here now, to talk about what creativity means to both of them, our interview with Terry Fator and Steve Axtell. Terry Fator, Steve Axtell, welcome both back to Talk for Two. How are you today, gentlemen?
Very good.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This is great. Now, little history, don't know if you guys know this. Guests number 6 and 7, Terry and Steve, respectively, back together. I've had this idea in my head for months for doing this. There's no way I wanted to kick off such a special week than with you two. So let's jump right in. How did you guys start working together? Terry, was it during America's Got Talent or after?
Well, it was after, wasn't it, Steve? Or was it kind of...
It was during. And can I tell the story?
Yeah, tell the story.
This is a total crack up. So Terry's winning. The whole ventriloquist world is watching. We're just absolutely breathless because we know Terry's going to win. It feels like he's going to win. It's absolutely certain. So I sent him an email and I said, Mr. Fator, I would like to introduce myself to you. I have a puppet company, and I would like to sponsor you. I would like to give you a custom puppet to go on and win America's Got Talent with. And here's a link to my website and such and so. And Terry wrote back and said, wow, Mr. Axtell, I can't believe that I've never been able to afford any of your puppets. But I'll tell you what, if I win, I'm going to buy puppets from you and be hearing from me. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool, but I want you to win with one of my puppets. And he explained to me that his sister had purchased this toy puppet for him of this turtle, and he had a great idea. Your idea for Roy Orbison, right?
Yes.
And so then when Terry won, he immediately called me and said, oh my gosh, I won. It was so freaking exciting. I remember all of it. It was just so awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, I didn't think I would win. Everybody else seems to think I would. And it's weird because like almost daily I have people say, oh yeah, as soon as you came on the show, we knew you were going to win it. And I'm like, apparently I was the only one who didn't.
Well, when you're knee deep in it, you don't want to get that big head about it. And
it was just weird because I figured I'd get on a couple episodes and get kicked off, and then I could, raise my price at elementary schools. That's what I thought. I didn't realize I was going to win it and then become, the first ventriloquist to have a long-term Vegas contract.
That's still cool. And when you were designing that show, Steve was one of your go-to guys. What do you like about the way Steve works?
Oh, me? Oh,
yeah.
Well, quality. I mean, Steve is everything you do. Steve is amazing quality. So, and of course, I knew your website, and I'd looked, and the thing is your puppets are not they're not priced out of range. Like it's just I just was never made that much money at it. Right. It was it was difficult, and that's why I couldn't afford them. It's not like, they're not affordable. It's just that all my money was going into payment.
No, I just think it's a serendipitous story that that was actually true, that you at that time didn't find that you could afford those, and then you won, and you're the richest man in the world now. So anyway, it's been really, really cool, and we have a video, Matt, where Terry called me up and ordered Connie, the puppet. We showed the entire process of that, from brainstorming with Terry to building him all the way through, and it was really great. I got to see a video here recently of his performance in Hawaii.
Yeah, was that the debut? Was that the debut, Terry? Because those two.
He's actually performed. I've actually performed on like Christmas stuff, but that was his real debut because
awesome.
I've done just little things with him before. I've never done. That was his first real routine that I wrote specially for him. I learned a special Hawaiian song just for him.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. So I consider that his debut. But he has done a couple of Christmas. He sang Mele Kalikimaka once.
Yes, I think I saw that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting because you can have an idea for a character, and we're getting into the question about which you and I, Terry, have talked about. And I think I've talked about it with you too, Steve. That which comes first, the character or the reason for the character or the puppet. Here, you had an idea for the puppet. You called Steve up, and Steve, you worked on it. And then Terry, except for those little things that you were saying, you kind of sat on it and had to get certain things right, and it took a couple of years. So which usually comes first when you two are working together?
Terry.
Yeah, usually it's I come up with the idea of what I want, and I was just like, it'd be fun to do a Hawaiian puppet. At the time I was married to a Hawaiian lady, and we're not married anymore, but I was, I was able to get the puppet, and even so, I still am performing in Hawaii. For example, I'm performing in Hawaii in a week. I'm going there to do the Arthritis Foundation in Hawaii. So I just wanted a Hawaiian puppet to be able to perform in Hawaii and possibly get on like the Nohoku Awards or something like that to help. And so I just called Steve. But for me, the idea always comes first. But for some people, you might go to Steve's website and just look at some of the cool puppets that he has, and you might see a really great puppet and create a character using that. Now, when you get to the level where you have a Vegas show or something like that, or you're doing professional stuff, you'll have to have original characters, characters that nobody else has.
Yes.
And you don't have to do that if you're just performing. If you're not performing, on television and doing a lot of national stuff, you don't have to worry about that. But that's how I do. Is I create the character. I call up the unlike Jeff Dunham, I don't make all my own puppets. I have zero talent with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Man, I could barely draw a stick figure, much less make a puppet. So
it's really awesome to have different talent sets.
Yeah. And
be able to use collaborate on things like this. Really an exciting adventure.
It is.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun to do that, Steve. Yeah. I love doing that.
Now, Steve, do you ever approach him about an idea for a character? Ever get something in your head and say, hey, before I put this on the line, this could be something that fits with you really well?
Yes, I have pitched some things to Terry, and I've got some other things that I'm very interested in showing him. And those things, of course, are confidential. But one of the things was some of the animatronic stuff that we do.
Yeah.
And so we have different things going back and forth from time to time, and I've got some really cool stuff coming up that I'm going to be showing Terry.
That's great. And Terry, how do you decide if he throws the idea at you? Is it just don't want to do that right now, or where do you weigh those merits when he comes?
I'm
to you?
open to pretty much anything. I'm not closed off to anything. So it just sometimes somebody will come up with an idea. And send it my way, and if I like it, and I've been kind of and speaking of that, we you said you wanted to talk about Paul Zerden, which is a perfect time because of the whole animatronic thing, and interestingly, Steve and I had talked several years ago about doing a possible animatronic Winston, where I was able to use Winston and not be and have him sitting off. So if you want, we can kind of segue into that.
Yes, please.
Because that is something that Steve and I had talked about. In fact, I've done interviews where I said, I had this idea of having a puppet off stage years ago, and I never even saw the other ventriloquist who had done that. What's his name again?
David Strassman.
David Strassman. I had never even seen David Strassman. So to say that he stole the idea is a little silly, because it's not like nobody else can come up with that idea, because I'm sure you remember that, Steve, when I was talking about having Winston having a animatronic Winston.
Certainly, absolutely, yeah. And
Winston's my favorite character. In case you're listening and you don't know who Winston is.
Yes, the turtle.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The question is, and this is something that, for the listeners listening, Terry and Steve and I, we were all talking a little bit before we hit record here. This is something I brought up earlier, which is, where's that line for inventiveness in ventriloquism? Magicians do, and Steve, you came up with the magic drawing board that's used by vents and magicians alike. And anybody that does that, or anybody that adds something to it, everybody knows it comes back to you. Something a little further along the line in history, you have Houdini's Metamorphosis, or Coin Matrix. I wrote down here the person who did Coin Matrix. Hal Schneider and Yank Ho is the names I could come up with. We know who they are, but we don't credit them in performance. We add our own thing to them, or we do use different coins or different trunks. But ventriloquist, if it's a mask, it's a mask. If it's an electronic thing, it's an electronic thing, and it goes back to those people. But they still get kind of upset about it, even though it's that performer's own variation of it. So where's that line for ventriloquist to say it's thievery, or it's adding on something and honoring something that's been created?
Well, I'll let you answer that, Steve, and then I'll give my
Sure.
2 cents.
I have I come from a manufacturing standpoint and an invention standpoint. And so from that standpoint, there is absolute legal protection for things if you follow procedure. If you let it get into public domain, then it's no longer, it's still somebody's idea, and you can credit them, but it's not a legally protected thing. So my magic drawing board has a patent on it, and Bird Arm Illusion has a patent on it, different things that I needed to protect in that way. Characters such as Connie are made in such a way that they have a copyright because of the configuration of the shape of the face, the visual arts of it. That's copyrighted. Now, in the case of an exclusive character like Connie and the other puppets that I've made, like Vicky the Cougar and things for Terry, those copyrights transfer to him. He is the owner of those copyrights. In the case of Ron's mask, he has a copyright on the shape of that mask, on the configuration of the mask, and a trademark, which is the Mighty Mouth mask. Those are his things, and he's also known as the first ventriloquist that used a mask. But that's different than the legal representation of the product. Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, the actual product puppet, those things are actually, you cannot copy Kermit the Frog and not violate their copyright. You have to change it radically. Mm-hmm. And in the case of Terry's first Winston, which is the one that he won with, there was copyright issues with that because the company was so numbskull to be able to see that they would not allow Terry to use that in his thing. And they could have worked a sweet deal with Terry and had an official Terry Fator Winston the Turtle toy, and they passed on that. And that became a conflict for Terry. So we designed a new one, and then it went through another design. Mm-hmm. So we have several different Winstons as the character grew. Mm-hmm. So it modified, but all of that was in relation to the copyright ownership of a character, which has to be honored because it's a legal status. Yeah. Now, how his performance goes, that's something Terry would be more of an authority on.
Terry?
Yeah, well, I agree with you, and believe me, I've been through a lot of legal issues and legal problems with puppets and other things. So I do know this: you cannot copyright or own an idea. You can own a patent. You can own. So to say I'm the only person that can do a mask and put it on somebody and turn them into a ventriloquist puppet is pure nonsense. It's not true. You can, people are. So to say that, unless Paul Zerden's mask looked exactly like Ron Lucas's mask. To say that he stole the idea is did he probably see Ron do it, or and nowadays there are so many people who are doing it. I mean, there are tons of ventriloquists doing it. I've seen a bunch of them on the internet. So he may not have seen Ron do it, but he may have seen another ventriloquist do it.
Right.
And so it's not, look, it's the fact of the matter is the idea is so old. I mean, he did it in 1987 in that Disney special. And
but now you're the one that's paid him for the rights to use
well,
that.
Yeah,
I did that out of pure respect for Ron. I knew how Ron felt about it. I looked into it. Believe me, I had my attorneys look into it, and my attorneys were telling me I don't need to pay him. And I said, yeah, but I'm friends with Ron, and I know he feels very strongly about this, so I want to purchase the rights to use this from Ron. Just for my friendship, okay? Now, was I legally bound? No, I wasn't. But I just felt it was the right thing to do. But then the difference is, I can afford it. I mean, I had a lot of good luck and I had a lot of good fortune, so I can afford to do something like that. Somebody like Paul Zerdin, I don't know how successful he's been, but maybe he couldn't. And so to say that his routine was different from what Ron did, you can look at the two routines. Same thing with the Dave Strassman. Yes, he did walk off the stage, but his routine was completely and totally different from the one that Dave did on Arsenio Hall.
Yeah.
And so to say, oh, wow, he did it with stolen material, man, I just feel like that was unfair to Paul. Paul is an amazing ventriloquist. He's amazing. I mean, he's one of the best I've ever seen. He's right up there with the masters. So, I feel like that we should all be celebrating because,
yeah.
Another ventriloquist won America's Got Talent. That means every ventriloquist gets a pay raise.
Yeah,
so
that's
amazing.
This
is so good for the industry.
Yeah, but
yes.
Steve, do you find working from the business end, and answer this as thoroughly as you want, that we tend in the vent world more so in the magic world to say, we're more scared to say great minds think alike. Because if I could have an animatronic and never seen any routine by any ventriloquist where the person walks off stage, I could come up with that. I might come up with a different way of doing it, as does everybody. But
well, you should certainly, if you come up with something, you should do your research, find out what's out there, and then make it different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's true, Steve. And to say that, look, animatronic puppets have been around since Pirates of the Caribbean opened in 1955. So come on, you can't say that that's my idea, because somebody else might have gone to Disney to Disney World and got the idea to have an animatronic puppet. So I don't know if I worked with Paul on that last episode of America's Got Talent, and he was a wonderful guy, and he's a fantastic ventriloquist.
He really is.
So we should be celebrating and not this. I cannot believe that this has gotten, and I've actually been asked several times in several interviews, and it's like, wow, I can't believe we're talking about this. We should be celebrating. And the fact that anyone brought this up to me is pure nonsense. And I said it's much ado about nothing, people.
I have to say that from all I've heard and read and talked to individuals, it's really not so much Ron and David that are complaining. It's other people stirring the pot.
Yeah.
And they're
yes, I heard that. Yes, I did hear that.
Yeah, I think they've taken a high road that's pretty amazing. Now, credits due them in terms of history and that what they've done before. Nothing should be taken away from their prior work at all. But that's
the story. The story should not be Paul won on stolen material. The story should be, oh wow, hey, other people had different takes of this. Let's look at what Dave Strassman did. Let's look at what Ron Lucas did with his mask. And so to be able to say, yes, Ron Lucas is the one who, well, actually Joel Hodgson originated the idea.
Yes.
And then Ron bought the idea from, the patent from Joel.
Yeah.
So technically this was, but, we don't need to go through all that nonsense. Come on. That's something that we can know as professionals, that we don't need to, there's just no reason for us to, every time we get on stage say, I use the mask every night in my Las Vegas show. And I don't say, right now I'm going to do a bit that I bought from Ron Lucas. Come on, that's ridiculous. I just, because my routine is could not be more different from what Ron did. You know, it is absolutely a completely different routine. So, and as was Paul's. Paul's was totally different from what Ron does.
And we're getting into some interesting ventriloquism history theory here, which is our history of presenting this art on stage, to my knowledge and my knowledge of history, I'm not Tom Ladshaw by any means, is very new, is that the idea of presenting creative comedy routines on stage is still so new, and it's especially still so new to the mainstream. So it'll be interesting to see how 10, 20, 30 years down the road, history remembers the Ron Lucases and the David Strassmans and their contributions, and maybe the collective heat over this issue will kind of cool off as time goes by. Steve, what do you think?
I think it'll heal. I think it will grow the field, and everybody will eventually appreciate how much of growth has happened as a result of this second win and another one. Now we've got Britain's Got Talent that's actually saying, we hope a ventriloquist wins. Britain's Got Talent incredible. Next. I mean, look at the growth that's coming. It's a fire that's starting to catch on. And I think a lot of the small thinking comes from the fact that it's such a novelty field that it's not like singers that there so many people doing so many covers and so much wealth of voice talent out there. It's more of a niche, and so it's more of like King of the Mountain, more so than it is, because like when you really in the mind of the average American, there's probably only one or two positions for ventriloquists in their brain.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point, Stephen. And think about this: it would be pretty much like somebody saying, if somebody sang a Whitney Houston song and won American Idol, they say, they stole their routine from Whitney Houston. It's like, no, they didn't. They sang a Whitney Houston song and they won on it. Yeah. And it's like, so I just feel like that we should be, the van community. And look, I'm not going to change anybody's mind, and I'm okay with that. I'm totally all right with not changing anybody's mind. I wish we could all be celebrating, because I sure as heck am. I feel like, man, this is fantastic. I was so thrilled. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Every ventriloquist out there that's working and working their butts off are going to get a raise. Yes,
we're seeing an influx of interest in ventriloquism from this also. So it is growing the field, and younger people are starting to get excited about it again, too.
So, Steve, are you seeing an uptick in business? And Terry, are you seeing an uptick in audiences?
Well, I mean, my audiences have been so consistently good, but
of course,
and it's mostly just because I've established myself in Las Vegas for so long that a lot of people, when they come here, they just want to see it. So, I mean, I'm like bragging or anything. It's just that's just what is. But obviously, there's going to be a bigger interest in ventriloquism because my goodness gracious, this is a ventriloquist. What has happened is what this guy has done, and what myself, Jeff Dunham, people like Ron Lucas. What we're doing is we are making people realize that ventriloquism is more than just something for your kid's birthday party.
That's right.
For children's church, and that's the thing is because for a long time that's where people, when they thought of ventriloquism, all they thought of was this. All they thought of was little kids, and now they don't. And we're helping with that. And it can only help all of us. If you're a professional ventriloquist, all this can do is help, So we should all be so incredibly thrilled. And
absolutely. And it's happening in different categories, like Jay Johnson winning the Tony Award on Broadway.
Yep.
I mean,
exactly.
Broadway, comedy television, stage, Las Vegas. It's just incredible.
Exactly. We are making ventriloquism valid for for adult entertainment, and not just something that years ago. Every time if I ever said I was a ventriloquist, the first thing people said was, "Oh, my kids would love that." Oh, and it's like, well, I've never been a children's entertainer, never, not since I was 10.
Yeah.
Ever since I was an adult. That doesn't mean that my stuff is dirty. It's just that I write jokes for the adult intellect. I write jokes about the presidential campaign. Kids don't care about that. That's not going to go over to kids' birthday party. me talking about Donald Trump, you know.
Yeah.
So now, because of what's happening in the vent world, and because of, you know, me winning America's Got Talent, Paul winning America's Got Talent, Jeff Dunham having these, you know, amazing specials, and you know, just being so phenomenally successful worldwide. Look, people, when you say you're a ventriloquist now, people don't immediately think, oh, wow, that'd be great for my kid. They actually say, oh, you mean like Jeff Dunham? You mean like Terry Fator? Yeah. So that's, you know, this is a good thing, people, and I just wish we could all celebrate, because you know, and if we have these conversations, they should never, you know, we shouldn't be talking to the press about them. We should be talking to each other about them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
it is.
You know, I just hate to see us. I just hate to see us cannibalize ourselves.
Really, because it's only onward and upward from here. And I'm looking at two gentlemen right now that really, really serve this art form so well. And, you know, Steve, you are known for all of this high-profile work when you do work with Terry and you collaborate. What does it mean when you see somebody like Terry using your work in Branson or in Vegas, and somebody else using your work in Branson? And what does it mean for you as somebody who's created this small business to see your work out there like that?
Oh, man. It is Goosebump City, man. I tell you, just a month ago, I was there in Terry's show, and I was looking around. And of course, Terry acknowledges me and has me stand up, and the whole place applauds, and I'm just like, practically crying. You know, it's just such an incredible blessing to see your stuff up on stage and to be a part of something big. You know, Jay Johnson too uses a lot of my stuff, and in his Broadway show he won with the Magic Drawing Board and the Vulture and the Bird Arm Illusion. And I mean, these, to see Terry, he's like 5 or 6 of my puppets in his room there and has used on stage, and it's just really amazing. And I couldn't believe it. I looked around, and Terry's show is as packed now as it was on the first week.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It really is.
It's just beautiful.
Well, it goes, and this is, Terry, this is something you and I were talking about earlier. It goes to, there will always be room for quality anything. Quality entertainment, quality ventriloquism, quality anything. And when you put the quality talent that you have with the quality talent that Steve has, it's such a winning combination. Like, I don't think you could do a show without Vicky. I mean, really.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And that's what people have to understand, is that it's about quality, people. It's not about, and really, you know, look, the truth is that as long as your material and you are a quality act, you're going to be successful. Now, it took me years, but I'll tell you what, the year before I won America's Got Talent, you know, I was making more than $100,000 a year, which is a lot of money for a ventriloquist. Wow. It took me years and years and years to build that kind of thing, but it was because I was working schools. I was doing 3 to 5 shows a day, 9 months a year, 9 months out of the year at schools, and then in the summer I was doing fairs. So I was doing 12 months. I was working almost every single day, and I was making more than $100,000 a year doing it. So you know, even though I had not found the kind of audiences that I have now, I was still making a really decent living as a ventriloquist. And why? Because of quality. Because I cared about quality. And I'll tell you something. I've rewritten my show 10 times in 6.5 years in Vegas. And that's why I say, why are we griping that somebody took some material that you used in 1987 when you should have come up with, you know, 25 new ideas since 1987? You know, so really, let's stop talking about something that we you know, if somebody takes something from one of my old DVDs and is using it, great. I hope they're making money off of it. Yeah. Because I've already written a whole new DVD's worth, you know, and that's really what it's about. Keep coming up with new and creative and better material, and then you don't have to worry about somebody taking your stuff. You know, in fact, I encourage people to do videos and pictures in my show. I'm not worried about it because I say, look, I'm going to be constantly coming up with new stuff, so go ahead. You know, I don't mind, post it, you know. And it's a promotion for the new thing that you have. It's a really, but I want to go to Steve. Talk about quality. You built your business on quality products, on quality physical. If Terry has a quality show, you have the quality product to go along with that.
Thank you. It's a huge commitment It's easy to do junk, and it's very costly to do it right. I've got an incredible crew. I have 8 to 10 employees here, and they're all highly skilled. And I don't do everything. I mean, I work through them, and I have electronics going on. I have animatronics and mechanics going on, machining going on, the latex, the mold making, the casting, the painting, sewing, the hair, the customer service that we have to train and do, and we really have a high standard for all this stuff. And you fit it all together, and it's really a commitment. I have to say, it's been a lifetime commitment. 35 years now in business, so
and one of the
we're
things,
trying to keep that standard high.
one of the things you say to me, and you said this to me when I was at CAX last year, which was you listen to your customers. You listen. You post on Facebook, you interact, and you engage. Terry, you do the same thing on your fan page. You listen to your customers. Terry, do you listen to your audiences?
Of course I do. And I do write for my audience. Now obviously there are some times when you have to say you have to listen to what they're saying, and then you have to decide for yourself what's the best. For example, there are people that will come to my show and they will expect. Now, I am a Christian. I am not ashamed of being a Christian. I'm a very strong Christian. Steve, you know this. Very strong Bible-believing Christian. And yet my show is not, it's clean. It's one of the cleanest shows in Vegas, but it's not squeaky clean. It's not something I would ever do at a church. But I am a Las Vegas entertainer. So somebody might come to my show and say, wow, I really expected something different. But now it is a clean show. And I'll look at it and say, I'll listen to them and I'll say, you know what? I'm sorry that you don't feel that way, but 99% of my audience loves what I do, and I feel that it's relevant, and I'm not uncomfortable with what I do. So in that case, you just have to really you have to do what you feel is the right for your show. You cannot let other people for your show. Now with somebody like Steve, it's a little different because he's making a product.
Yeah.
You're making a product, so you do have to. When your customer wants it a certain way, you have to do it that way. Whereas with me, if you're putting together a show, you have to determine what type of show you're going to do. If you want to be a church entertainer or a children's entertainer, then you need to write your show based on that.
Yeah.
And I am not a church entertainer, and I'm not a children's entertainer. I am a Las Vegas entertainer. So therefore, I do have some references that certainly would not go over in a church. But yet, that does not conflict with my belief in Christ,
Right.
by any means, And if it goes against your belief system, then you need to just go and see church entertainers.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because whereas Steve might say, what are your ideas for a character, or what do you think of this character? We did a whole brainstorming session at CAX. You'll put out sometime, what do you want my next impression to be? You'll put that out, and you'll hear what they want, the kind of music that your audiences are attuned to.
That's very true. Yes, exactly. And I definitely do that. I say, I'll ask my audiences, who would you like to hear? Who would you like to see in the show? Who would you like to, and it just gives me an idea. Or, I'll hear somebody on the radio, or I'll notice that song's getting a lot of airplay, and a lot of times I'll even invent a character just based on the impression that I want to do.
Yeah.
So it's. But everybody's different in how they come up with different characters.
So how did Vicky? I can't let you go without. And then we have some final questions, but after this next part. But I can't let you go without the answer to the question: where did Vicky come from? I have to know the story behind Vicky the Cougar.
Well, Vicky the Cougar, and you mind if I start, and then you can interject afterwards. But yeah, I actually went to L.A. And I had never really spent much time in L.A., but as soon as I won America's Got Talent and I had gotten the Vegas gig, I went to a bunch of parties, and I was going to a bunch of different things in L.A. And I think I even went to like an after Emmy party or something. And I got to tell you, I did not, I had seen these ladies that were cougars, that were older, that had a lot of plastic surgery on TV and stuff. I always thought they were just TV characters. I didn't realize there were so many of women that were just like that. So I actually were seeing these women at these parties, and I'm sitting there watching them, and I'm going, man, I have got to have one of these characters. I gotta create a character that is like that. And that's exactly what I did. I called Steve and I said, listen, obviously I want a woman who's had a lot of plastic surgery, so let's make her it's not plastic, but
Yeah.
Yeah, we went through quite a few drawings back and forth of different
sure did.
ideas.
And I settled on redhead because everybody thought it was going to be, blonde, but it was like, wait a minute, maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe she shouldn't be blonde. Maybe she should be something different, something unique. So that was kind of cool.
And then the spelling of her name was unique also. Vicky the Cougar. It just rolls. It sounds really great. I got a bobblehead of Vicky right here in my room.
I love it. It's wonderful.
I couldn't believe it when I took my wife one time to see Terry's show for the first time that we saw Vicky on stage, and they gave us our room key, and Vicky was on the room key.
Oh, that's great.
I was just like, yeah, this is awesome.
That's awesome. Because I can't see Vicky being made by any other. I love it. You still have it. I love that you still have it. That's great. I can't see Vicky being made by any other figure maker. The latex look really helps with that plastic surgery look that you were talking about. So the last question about this, and then we'll kind of get into the future details and wrap this up. How do you decide what puppet maker to go with, Terry, when you want to work with Steve? When does he come into mind? It
really depends on the type of character that I want. If it's going to be more of a Jim Henson type, I'll go with the same people that work with the Jim Henson puppets, Puppet Heap. They just do phenomenal work. Now, although I got to say, Steve, you did Connie, and I wanted him to have more of a soft look to him.
He's got a fleece skin.
Yes, I love that about Connie.
He's got that kind of felt-looking skin. So just an amazing job with that. So Steve obviously is branching out and getting more than just the latex type looks. So
we use a lot of different.
And then if it's a wooden puppet, I go with Keith Lovick, who is Craig Lovick's nephew. And anyone who's my age and has been a ventriloquist for as long as I have knows who Craig Lovick is. Walter, my very first professional puppet, was actually I bought him from Chuck, I bought him from Chuck Jackson when I was young, and when I found Keith Lovick, I had him open him, and he was actually made by Craig, by Craig Lovick. So it was kind of delightful for Keith to find out that his uncle is the one who originally made Walter, my cowboy character. And interestingly enough, I bought him, and they had never sold another one of that particular character, so I was able to buy the rights to him so that he's an original that nobody else has. So it was really kind of cool with that.
Yes, I think it's actually, I think that's actually Craig's son. Craig's son. But
is it Craig's son?
Yes, yes, Craig's son. But it's still, from father to son, or I don't care if it were his nephew. It's still fantastic work.
Yeah, I knew Craig. Craig's the one that got me started.
Oh, really?
In the dummy business, ventriloquist world. I was a performer, and I had the burr arm illusion and some latex characters that I had done, and I was performing in my shows, literally on the weekends while I was working in mental health. And my wife and I were new in town in Atascadero, California, and we put our finger down and said, we want to go to a church today. Let's go to, and we just put our finger down on a church. So we just went there. And we sat down, and after church, and it was the weirdest situation. It was done in a preschool. It was just a startup church and just about 4 rows of seats. It was the strangest thing. And I'm sitting on like preschool chairs, and I'm like, okay, let's pick a different one next week, And then as we're exiting, a guy walks up to me and says, Steve, would you come with me and come to lunch with my wife and I? And so we went over to their house, and it was Craig Lovick. And
wow.
I could not believe it, because I have a brochure where somebody had sent me from Mayor Workshop way back in the day, and that was Craig's business and he was selling dummies through Mayor Studios with Clinton. And from that moment on, he started to teach me and mentor me about the ventriloquist market and field, and teaching me how to make. Because he was working with latex before I was, and he really loved the fact that I was toying in that. So he
awesome.
did have a lot of influence on me.
You haven't shared that with us before. That's
fantastic.
That's really fantastic.
Yeah, Keith does remarkable work, and
Yes,
he made my newest character, which is a robot puppet.
I saw it.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Isn't that a fun little surprise at the end? And it's just
love it.
Yeah, that was just so well done. I was just so pleased with what he had done with that. So,
what's it made out of? What
it's just wood, but it's painted silver.
My word, that's awesome.
I'm a purist. I know a lot of people like composite, but boy, I grew up with the basswood, and so I guess I probably need to get into the 21st century. But I don't know. I just love the idea of a wooden puppet.
No, I would modernize. I like what you're doing with modernizing the classic and traditional techniques there. But I gotta ask.
All over the place. That's the beautiful thing about Terry is he has all kinds of styles in his show.
Yeah.
He's got latex. He's got fleece covered puppets, and he's got wooden dummies. And, that's really awesome.
Yeah, you're not defined by one particular maker or style. And that's why it feels like you're entering a different world every time you see a different character, is because it's a family in that it is an eclectic mix, but it's not beholden to one sort of stylistic look, and I love it. And that's leading to the perfect last couple of questions here, which is, when are you two teaming up again? What's some, I know you said some stuff was hush-hush, but is there anything you can tease to you guys teaming up with another character, another Axtell creation for Terry Fator?
Well, that part...
Go ahead, Steve.
We can't really talk about that part, but there is something happening that Terry and I are secretly working on that is something that you don't know about, Matt, and that's something that Terry and I have been discussing on the side. And it's really going to be fun to finally announce it. And Terry, you may or may not know what I'm talking about, but I'll remind you when we're done.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. That's an awesome tease. All right. I guess we'll close it out since that was. We'll close it out with one question from each of you. Your top tip on being creative and original. Terry, we'll start with you.
You just have to let yourself loose. You really have to no idea is a bad idea. It may not be something you can actually use, but don't ever, I'll sit there when I'm sitting there writing, and let me tell you something. The best way to write is with friends.
Yes.
I have comedy writers that work with me. One of them is just a friend of mine that I actually have hired now as a comedy writer because he and I are funny together.
I can see that.
And I know that a lot of people just like, well, I want to do it all by myself. But I promise you're going to come up with much, much better material if you just get together and have fun and enjoy yourself. But don't limit yourself. Don't, political correctness. Yeah, you may come up with something that you can never do. And that's fine, but just really, really don't let there be any limits at all to what you're going to be doing. I mean, to your creativity, in other words. And you'll have to edit it before you put it on on stage or screen. But really, just don't limit yourself ever. Don't say, well, this is something I can't think about or I can't do. Just do it because it might lead to something really brilliant. So just let your creativity flow. That's really my best advice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And to that end, is that video, Steve, before you give your tip, is that video still available? The writing video from Convention 2013, is that still up on your YouTube?
Yeah, so we have a link to it on our Alien page.
Oh, on the Alien page. Oh, cool. Okay. All right, check that out. Steve, what's your tip?
Journaling every day, writing the ideas down as they flow from your brain. As you wake up from a dream, as you fall asleep and you're in that twilight, just reach over and write down that idea that hits you, because these are brilliant things that flow into you at times when you don't expect it, in the shower. All of these times are key for me. And then every single day I'm writing down the stages of those things evolving.
Yes.
And I have hundreds of notebooks. I have over 200 notebooks that are from the beginning of our business. And then the other thing that's key to truly being original and creative is to know yourself and be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. do the things that are speaking to you deep inside, and those will succeed.
Wonderful.
That's great advice, Steve. And you know what? I couldn't agree more. And listen, if you feel uncomfortable with material that is more, that's I don't want to say dirty, but is it's
risque,
then don't ever do that. But if you're if you're okay with it, then do it. It's like you have to make the decision for yourself what is going to work for you, and let your own voice and let your own conscience and your own just let yourself kind of allow you to think of what you want and what you want to do. Mm-hmm. So that's really good. Yeah, find your voice and don't try to copy somebody else. You can borrow from people. You can. Every time I see another ventriloquist, I get inspired, and I'll go and see Jeff Dunham. He's been here in Vegas for a while, and man, it inspires me and makes me want to write material, and that's great. That's what you want to do. I don't ever steal material, but boy, it just makes me. It's like, oh man, I just want to create something. I want to write something, and so get DVDs, get other people's work, and let it inspire you to find your own voice and to write your own, put your own mark on that.
That is wonderful, Steve. Last word.
Be yourself. I mean, there's really nothing to say about that. It's like what you're doing, Matt, as a podcaster. You are finding your own voice with Talk for Two, and you're honing it in. You've modified it. You've changed it. You're growing with it. We're watching you, one of the leaders of the next generation of entertainment, craft yourself, and watching that grow. You're being yourself. You're not sounding like Mark Maron or anyone else. You are you. And that's the key.
Well, thank you very much. And since you brought me into the equation, I have to thank you gentlemen for coming and starting out this week because, like I said at the top, you were number 6 and number 7, respectively. And to have you back and to have worked with you over these last couple of years, both of you, and to get to call you friends and establish that relationship is just something I couldn't have ever hoped for without doing this. So it's a two-way street with what you have done for me. And I thank you both so much for everything and for being here today.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Matt. Great talking with you, Steve. This was fun.
Too, Terry.
Thank you both for everything. Steve, I'll see you in just a few short months at CAX, and I have a hunch you'll be back on here before then as well. We got to keep that tradition going. And Terry, nothing but best wishes for you, my friend. That gig, I cannot get over how cool that gig at the Mirage is for you. That's it for us today. Now, I got to tell you, I'm keeping these end things, these last part. You're not going to get the commercial about what we have on the site most this week because you'll be hearing my voice throughout the rest of this week. So I want to keep it short and sweet. And in that same vein, we'll all be tired of my voice by the end of this week. It's hard to believe the podcaster can get tired of his voice, but trust me, I know that everybody else has limits, and so do I. So after this week, we're going to take a week off, and then we're going to come back in November. But don't you worry, because we still got 4 episodes left. I'm so looking forward to tomorrow. In the meantime, that is Ken Cragen, by the way. And if you're listening to this after we've aired, well, you get the good stuff because you could just go ahead and go click right on this next episode. In the meantime, you can find all you need to know about Talk for Two by going to our website, talk4, spell out 2, that's TWO.com. Reach out by emailing talk, FORTWOCAST, talk42cast at gmail.com, and find our group or like us on Facebook by searching for Talk for Two. Tweet us and about us using @ and hashtag Talk42. Signing off for Talk for Two, I'm Matt Bailey, reminding everyone out there to keep talking for two.
You can hear more show business interviews with the stars at talk4two.com, where you'll also find one-of-a-kind products to improve your own show. That's talk, the number 4, TWO.com.